What's going on, guys? Welcome on back to the Second and Short podcast here on the Mosaic MC Network. I am Ty Lauder, joined with Mosaic MC East, Jason Teasley. We are finally back. You'll be seeing after this episode, we do a mock draft that's coming out here in a couple of days as well. But today we're going to be talking about rumors going into the NFL draft. As soon as the NFL draft's over, we're going to dive back into some fantasy content as well. Right now, you can check out more fantasy stuff on shorts and TikToks and reels and stuff like that we have going on. Before we jump on in, Jason, tell me right now on a scale of 1 to 10, your excitement for the NFL draft.
11. This is the start of, mine and your season, our third season together. It's definitely got some excitement because everybody's really up on this draft class. And there's reason to be, because I think you're going to be able to find some gems in this draft class that will go unexpected. And just some of these big names coming out to see what will transpire in their careers.
Absolutely. So we are going to be covering Pro Football Focus just came out with a questionnaire. And if you go check them out, they've got a rumors buying and selling. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll get to the very first question, which is where we're going to start off. The first question talks about quarterbacks. Second one talks about wide receivers. So as we scroll on down, the first question I'm going to start us off with here is, could one of the top 4 quarterbacks slide out of the top 10? So we're talking about Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Will Levis.
I'm buying this. I think Levis is the one that will slide, I believe. I think Richardson has helped his stock tremendously with his pro day and everything and combine. So I think his draft stock's rising a little bit. Unless there's some big trades made, I definitely buy this to see at least one of them sliding out of the top
10. And right now, put your nail in the coffin where you see one of them sliding out. Who is let's rank them from number 1 being the least likely to fall out to number 4 being the most likely. How do you rank them?
Honestly, this is going to count some backlash. I go Stroud, Richardson, Young, Levis.
So you think that Bryce Young has the second best chance to fall out of the top 10? He's only visited, mind you, with the Carolina Panthers and Houston Texans, canceled all of their visits.
Yeah, I think that he has the second highest probability, and it's not because of skill. I think Richardson's done some good work to propel himself past that. I think there's been some talks about how Houston will handle the number 2 pick. So yeah, I think it's a hot take to see that he might slide.
Absolutely. And that's kind of your hot take, Teasley. You kind of drop hot takes when they're, all the time. For me, I think Bryce Young is the most locked in quarterback. I think there's no chance he falls out of the top 2 spots. I think literally the reason why we're talking about Houston maybe not taking a quarterback is because they won't get Bryce Young. And that's how they're looking at that. I think CJ Stroud is pretty locked in that I don't think he can make it past 4. And Anthony Richardson is risky. He's my number 3 in this spot. I think that he could fall out of the top 10, but I do think teams are going to be chasing that quarterback right now. There's way too much talk of like tank for next year and get Caleb Williams or get, Drake May, but you can't predict you're going to be that bad. I mean, you couldn't think you are, but the Chicago Bears had a franchise quarterback and they got the number 1 pick. I think Will Levis is the guy though that will fall out of the top 10 potentially. I just see his range of outcomes being drafted at 4, all the way drafted to like 19 or 20. Like he has such a wide range. And there's some people out there that don't think, some GMs have reported that Richardson and Levis don't have first round grades, some GMs out there. So it can happen. I think there's a really good chance all 4 go in the top 10, but it wouldn't surprise me if 1 or 2 fell out of that range. So now your turn. You asked some questions. I believe you got a wide receiver question. Let's go and start us off.
The wide receiver that will come off the board later than most mock drafts have predicted.
So the receivers will come. So there's a lot of talk. And in our mock draft, I thought when we started doing it, because we did it before and everything, I've been talking to a lot of people that there's too much receiver talk. I don't think this is a very undersized receiver class. A lot of the bigger sized guys are guys you'd probably look at as like late round 2, round 3 that are kind of moving themselves up. We're talking guys like Marvin Mims and like Jonathan Mingo that are pushing themselves at the board due to size. I think I do think with the size issues and the defensive stackedness of this class, there's a lot of good edge rushers. There's a lot of good cornerbacks. There's a lot of good offensive linemen in the top, 45 prospects. Add in the fact that we have probably 4, maybe 5 quarterbacks going in the first round. Yeah, I mean, I could honestly, if we start Friday and only 1 or 2 receivers have been drafted the first round, I won't be surprised. I'm like, yeah, okay, makes sense. JSN and the flavor of the month, whoever it is. But on the counterpart, if 4 receivers go in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think Flowers, Johnston, and Addison have really got to be like a team's like niche to go. I think they all have the talent, but I do think that they all have little question marks around them, whether it be, are they an all-around receiver? What's their size? Like, can they play against enough competition? They can do it for long enough, their health. A JSN is a first-round receiver. I think it's locked in. So
yeah, I think it's a lock.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think JSN is the only one that I can lock in as a definite first round. The others, like I said, they come with small question marks, and it has to be a team need. I don't see a lot of wide receivers going in the first round. If there is a push, the most I see is 2. JSN and, like you said, flavor of the month, which seems to be currently Zay Flowers. That could change 4 or 5 times before the draft actually rolls around. But yeah, I see a lot of hype on these receivers that are making moves. They might be first round talent in any other draft class, but this one, because you have so much depth at other positions and team needs to fill those. So I think if this receiving core might have came out last year, you would have seen, people move up, their grades move up. But I think in this draft class, there's a lot of talent in other positions that could go ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, and just like off the top of my head, like I was saying, I've got like 7 defensive line first round grades. I've got like 5, 6 offensive line first round grades. I've got 3 quarterback first round grades. I've got 2 tight end first round grades. I got a running back first round grade. Like it starts to fill up. And cornerbacks, I mean, there could be 6 cornerbacks in the first round. Like there's this cornerback class is so good. And I think, especially when you look around the league, I think a lot of people that like cover this outside of like major markets are big like fantasy football enthusiasts and like dynasty enthusiasts. So like, it's like, oh, well, I love this receiver. Like I love offense and they don't play IDP as much. So we kind of see that. And I know I'm kind of blending fantasy here, but yeah, I mean, you could tell me it could be 1 or it could be 4. And I'd be like, yeah, sounds good. This is a very unpredictable draft. Once we get past like the quarterbacks and like Will Anderson. Ooh. All right, next question. Hendon Hooker will go in the first round.
Oh, that's a bold prediction. I'm selling it.
You're selling it. But what are the odds out of 10? Like if you were to give us a ranking, you're still selling, so you're on the lower end.
Yeah, I'm saying 45.
Okay, so like
I'm not selling hard. I'm not selling hard because, I see a team that could, see him sitting there at the back, at the back half of the first and see where they're sitting at the second, knowing that they can't, secure that talent. So I see it as a improbable, but not impossible.
I think the biggest thing is, when we look at this is how many first round quarterbacks does each team have on their board? That's the big thing, because we talk about a spot and it's not like too much, but like Indy, like realistically, like if 3 quarterbacks go and they don't have 4 first-round quarterbacks, they have whoever that fourth guy is. If they have Stroud, I think Stroud's their number 1 guy, but let's say Richardson, Levis, and Hooker, and they have one of those guys as a first-round grade, 2 of them as a second-round grade. If one of those guys in there at 4, they might just, not go quarterback and then move back in. I've seen the Saints linked to him a lot, to Hooker a lot. I've seen the Vikings linked to him a lot. I do think teams like, what if it was crazy and Houston was like, DeMeco Ryans like, I'm a defensive guy. I'm going to get my pass rusher at 2. I'm going to get my cornerback at 12 to pair up with Stingley or a linebacker or a nose tackle. Jalen Carter falls to 12. And then he turns around and trades into the, back end of the first and takes Hendon Hooker.
This is one of the most unpredictable drafts I can remember. I know this is one of the most unpredictable drafts me and you've covered, because we've went back and forth on a lot of topics like, well, do you think this person goes here? Do you think this person goes here? I could see them falling back. I could see teams moving up. There is very little concrete evidence of anybody outside of 1 going quarterback. Outside of 1 quarterback going 1, the rest of the draft is question marks. And I think that I could definitely see Houston do that. I could see someone like Washington making some plays for a quarterback and, solidifying multiple holes. And, Indianapolis, you mentioned the Vikings. Kirk Cousins isn't getting any younger. Tennessee's been linked to, looking at quarterbacks. So there's a lot of question marks, and I love the uncertainty. That's one thing I'm loving about this draft more than anything.
Yeah. All right.
Now, next question. We alluded to this a little bit because it is such a deep draft class. Will there be a major run on cornerbacks in the first round?
Yeah, I think so. I think we could see 2 cornerbacks going in the top 10. I could see another 2 to 3 cornerbacks going in the teens, and I could see another 2 cornerbacks going in the 20s. I think stopping the pass is such a need for everybody, and we've all focused on edge rusher when we talk about that. Like get into the quarterback. Well, sometimes the best way to get to the quarterback is to have coverage sacks. If you have such good DBs that aren't giving, any room for these receivers to get open, your average defensive end can get in and get a sack. And so I think when we look at names like we talk about Christian Gonzalez and Devon Witherspoon as our top 2, depending on what body style, athletic, abilities you want. I think guys like Banks and Joey Porter Jr., I think could be first round guys. I think guys like Forbes and DJ Turner have first round ability. We're not even talking about who am I missing? Guys like Cam Smith. We didn't even talk about Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami. We even talk about Brian Branch is a safety, but he plays in the slot a lot. He steps up into the box too. Man, I wish I had this number on me. I didn't even think about having this number, but I think there's a real opportunity that the cornerbacks drafted in the first 2 rounds will be record breaking. Like I could see double-digit cornerbacks by pick 63.
I think there could be as many as 7 corners taken in the first round. Yeah. That's a high expectation, but the talent is there, and
the needs there.
There's a lot of need because of the passing style that the NFL is, but the talent is there, and this is going to be a fun cornerback class to watch throughout their careers if everybody lives up to expectations.
Absolutely. All right. Now, the NFL.com or ESPN, I don't even know where it was, but it came from somewhere, dropped their draft invitees. And right away, there's a list on there. And I immediately went 3 names where I was like, I don't know. That's risky. Like Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, which we already alluded to, and then edge rusher out of Georgia Tech, Keon White was invited. And I'm like, I don't know if those three will go in the first round. It's so risky. And then again, there's stuff we don't know. I mean, Keon White could go mid first. So that's the question here. Georgia Tech edge defender Keon White will go in the first round. He's an invitee. Are you buying or selling this?
I'm selling this. I think there's just too much talent in front of him to justify that. I mean, I think this is going to be a Geno Smith-esque draft day play out where Geno sat there for all the first round. They kept taking the camera back, saying, "Is this where he's going to go?" And he was getting time in the draft, and he was just sitting there. And I think that definitely does something to your mentality. It either puts a chip on your shoulder or makes you doubt yourself. Keon White is a nice edge rusher. He's very athletic, but I just think there's too much talent in front of him.
And not only that, he's 24 years old, so he's an older edge rusher here too. We talk about guys like Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Lucas Von Ness, Nolan Smith. That's off the top of my head. I mean, all those guys I think are guys that I think are locks to go in the first round. We talk about guys like Will McDonald, BJ Ojulari. Let's see who else I got here that I think is like not necessarily Miles Murphy. I mean, right there. I mean, and I would say Keon White and McDonald are probably close. Ojulari probably close as well. Being 24, this is really risky. Last year there was 3 players that went to be drafted in third round selections that were in the draft green room last year, as well as Kyler Gordon, who went 39 last year as well, quarterback to the Bears. So there's 4 players last year didn't get drafted in the first round. I really want to know who and why the NFL chooses to invite who they do. Like I read this morning that they didn't invite Quentin Johnson because there was worries that he would, he didn't want to be embarrassed if he didn't go in the first round. Who gets invited to this? Like, that's what I want to know. Like, do teams say like, hey, can you invite this guy? Because if he's there, we're taking him. Like, how does this work? Does the NFL just pick names out of a hat?
That's a really good question. I'd love to know the method to the the method to the madness. Because coming out of West Virginia, Geno Smith was a highly talented quarterback, and he wasn't taken in the first round. He was in the green room though.
I think this is different than that situation because Geno didn't go because quarterbacks just didn't go.
Yeah,
White's behind a stacked position.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's I mean, that's the kind of thing that he was invited knowing how the draft class, the needs and everything, but he was still invited. So trying to get in it, we may need to dig into that and find out what constitutes a NFL draft invite for draft day.
I feel like what should happen is the NFL should say we have 25 spots, and I believe all 32 teams should send in 25 names that they want to get invited. And then from there, what you do is you have the most invited 40 players. Well, you probably have 40 players, but you just cut it down to 25 and you just start asking at the top. This player had 32 invites. And that's just kind of how it goes. Like every team wants Bryce Young there. So we invite him. He says yes, go to the next person. And that's how you fill it. So the 25 guys that are there had the most teams that wanted them there. I think that's how it should go because it is kind of an embarrassing moment at times too.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. Who was it? Was it Manziel that just they kept flashing on the screen and he was back and he was just pounding beers and he had and he was just like you could just see him getting so defeated as the draft lingered on and he kept getting passed over, quarterbacks taking him in front of him. So yeah, I mean it's definitely something to do, and we could definitely. I'm going to look into that. For an upcoming TikTok, I will research it and find out how that's broken down.
And the problem really for me when I watch this, when I watch the draft, is that they show it so many times. Like, show the draft room, the green room, when everybody starts. And then as people get picked, you show them. That's it. You don't go in there and be like, oh wow, this CJ Stroud's still in there. Here we're at pick 25. Don't do that. Don't do that. You're just trying to get views off of like somebody else's like embarrassment.
Misfortune.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a need for it. I think it's disgusting, and it's something that doesn't really need to be added in the NFL draft at all. It doesn't really matter to me. Like, go back and show me highlights of a player just drafted. You have 10, 15 minutes. Talk about that guy for 10, 15 minutes. And if you can't, find some personalities that can. And it will literally,
available.
If I see that happen too often, I will literally switch draft channels. If it happens if I'm watching NFL and it's too much, I'll go to ESPN and watch theirs. Like, I will switch.
I mean, if you need somebody to come in and talk, me and Ty can come in and fill that void and, analyze draft picks and everything for you. Get a couple of talking heads. I mean, we cannot be bought, but we can be rented.
Yeah, I could be bought. I could totally be bought. I have a price range. So with that, let's add a bonus onto that and everything. I don't know if you have the list up in front of you, but how many names do you think you don't say won't go in the first, but are at risk from that draft room that might not go? Like, when you scan that list, I think there's 24 invites, maybe a little more. But for me, those are the three. Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, and Keon White are the three I think at most risk of not going in the first.
Definitely White. Jordan Addison, I think, goes. The only one that I would question is Zay Flowers. I think he has a real borderline there. And those are the two that jump out immediately to me.
Mm-hmm.
Is Keon White and Zay Flowers.
Yeah. All right. And number 6, our final draft rumor question.
The offensive tackle position is usually touted as a high commodity.
Mm-hmm.
But they may not come off as early as they have in the past. Are you buying or selling this?
I am buying this. But when I say that, though, the preface is that I think there's still going to be 5 offensive linemen drafted in the first round. I think we're going to have 3 tackles and 2 interior guys drafted in the first round, and it could be 6 total. But I do think when you look at it, real quick, Carolina, Houston, Arizona, Indy, Seattle, Detroit. I don't think those 6 go offensive tackle. I think like Seattle or Detroit could, but with them having 2 picks in the first round and 2 in the second, they don't really need to. So really our first spot is 7. And that's, so when we look at 7 and if offensive tackle goes at 7, that means one of our defensive players fell to 8, which Atlanta needs. So I don't think they go at 8. Could they go at 9? Absolutely. I think 7 and 9 are the most likely spots, but something could happen where, teams trade up to get quarterbacks. And realistically, what if 4 quarterbacks go in the first 4 picks? Well, you're going to tell me after that for picks 5 through 10 is probably going to be a cornerback or 2. It's probably going to be Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson, Jalen Carter. Now we're at 10 and we haven't had an offensive tackle drafted. So I think it will happen where it's going to fall, but I think that 7 to 19, 20 range, we'll see 3 go in that range.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of the latest times that a offensive tackle's taken in my recent memory. And I think that you're going to have to press hard. Now, I think from like pick 15 to the end of the second, you're going to see a lot of parity in there. But 15 and above, I think you might see at most 2 at most in the top 15.
Yeah, I think that is possible. But like we said, we have the Raiders, we have the Bears, we have the Titans if they don't get who else they want, the Jets, I'd say Washington. Still going down my list real quick, just trying to see.
We've already mentioned Indy.
We've already mentioned Indy, Jacksonville. We got Seattle. I think later the Giants, Cincinnati, maybe Philly, Kansas City. I mean, that's 12 teams right there where I could say offensive lineman is a top 3 positional need for them.
Yes.
And so it all comes down to their boards, but I don't think we're going to see an offensive tackle drafted before 7. I think 7 is where they will start. But in saying that, I mean, from pick 7 to 31, I think there'll be 5 or 6 guys. Like, that's still a lot of guys in the first round, but it's not going to be, they're nowhere in the conversation, because if you were ranking every prospect in this class, I bet on average, the consensus would have the best offensive tackle probably at like 9 or 10. Probably. If you ranked if you took a consensus ranking from everybody, I'd say there's probably 2 or 3 quarterbacks in there, and then 6, 7 defenders, and then the tackle.
Yeah, his defensive class is unreal, and I think that hurts a lot of other positions.
Yeah, and I think it's really cool if you like pay attention to everything, like each draft class. If guys are really, if general managers are really like proactive and they trust they're going to be there year in year, and they can see forward, have that foresight, they can kind of see and predict these things. And if we talk about like fantasy football, like last year, it was like this draft class sucks. It's not good. There's nobody in this rookie class I can get quarterbacks. No, this is when you get your receivers. Get all your receivers, because in 2023, you're not going to get your receivers. You're going to get every other position. Like, if you can have that foresight and see that, then you can have success. And I think to own horns and everything, Scott Fitterer for the Carolina Panthers, I mean, not going quarterback, last year, 2 years ago, let me just say last year, and getting Ekwonu at tackle to have for his upcoming rookie quarterback, I think was a smart thing to do, seeing that the tackle class last year was a lot stronger than this year. I mean, we saw 3 guys go in the top 10 last year. But with that being said, we're done here. This is our comeback. Next week, we'll be talking about some more things for the draft that we are going to say, like our draft locks, guarantees, things that we know are going to happen, teams that we'll trade on draft day, as that episode will be coming out right before the draft on next Wednesday. After you're done with this, make sure you guys go check out, depending on when it was released, go check out our mock draft, our one and only final mock draft heading into this 2023 NFL draft class. He's Jason Teasley. I'm Tyler Lauder. It's Mosaic MC Second and Short. We'll see you guys next week.